You better hope Houston scores some points, man, because if not, they're going to be sitting their starters.
And we are live with week 10 of the Gridiron Address. Back at it again, little peek into backstage there for a second. Joining me for week 10, he's been on the show before. Always glad to have him on. Jason Calenzo. He's got a couple shows on Boom. Got to go check those out. Shannon Smith on again. Go check out Quickhits too. And who is essentially my co-host for most of the time, Chris Deluca. He's been on for like 70% of the season so far. Let's dive right into it this week. I had to bring Jason on because Panthers Giants in Munich this morning, had to bring it on. I figured it would be some good content, and it definitely is. We've been having some back and forth all day, and Jason, I know you feel very strongly about this game and everything that transpired. Real quick, before I get anyone else's thoughts on this, Jason, I got to hear from you. Just whatever you got to say it, because the people need to hear it.
Giants, man, you guys are killing me. Daniel Jones, hopefully I don't get to see you next year because that was absolutely pathetic. I would hope that you would have learned a little bit on playing the game of football, and you did not. I'm very disappointed in the coaching staff. Some of the play calling, especially down the stretch, was horrendous. You put Daniel Jones in places where he shouldn't be and ends up making mistakes. You know his strengths and you know his weaknesses. So what do? You put him in positions where he makes mistakes, and those mistakes ended up costing him. Now, the fumble at the end, that really wasn't his fault. I feel bad for Tracy, man. He was broke. You saw it in his face. That hurt. They did all that clawing to get back into that game. But you can't have red zone turnovers. They had 2 turnovers in the red zone where they could have took control of that game. But they didn't, and it was terrible. And as a Giants fan, it's painful to know that essentially the season is over and that we are looking to rebuild. Neighbors, hopefully they can take him out because I do not want to see him get hurt. I love Tracy. I think he's going to be a great addition. So take him out, please, so he doesn't get hurt. Giants, we need to see something next year, and you guys better draft somebody that can throw the football because you are wasting a lot of talent. It's terrible.
Speaking of people that can throw the football, perfect transition into the first question. Shannon, I'll throw this to you first. Should the Giants draft a quarterback with what could easily be the first overall pick in the 2025 draft? And if so, which I probably is so, who do you think they should take right now? Like, I know it's still pretty early in the college football season, but who's your QB1 that the Giants should go after?
Well, I would have to say the proof is in the pudding, and I think they have to draft a quarterback. Daniel Jones fell off the wagon. I have no idea what the deal is. I think we all know. Actually, we do. We knew that Saquon Barkley had this squad, and the squad left with him. It went to Philadelphia. And so I would have to say, yeah, draft a quarterback, and I would have to say the easy pick for that one would have to be Cam Ward. Now, I know that there are Dylan Gabriel people out there. I get it. But Cam Ward, to me, I think is your guy. I think he's probably the most pro-ready considering the fact he's been in college for about 6 years. So I would say that he probably would be your best guy. Dylan Gabriel's behind him too, because he's been in college about 5. So these guys, you're getting some guys that are actually developed in the quarterback position. So I would have to say the Giants would have to. I mean, it's bad enough they probably have to dump his contract because I think because he signed a new contract and they paid him some money. So they're going to have to probably dump his contract. So it's going to be super ugly. So I would have to say go ahead and get a quarterback in New York.
Chris, same question. I mean, obviously Giants need help at quarterback, but more so, who's your QB1 right now that you'd like to see in New York?
It's hard. I mean, they're going to have to really take a lot of time. Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, both been in college for a while, and there are pros and cons to that. Obviously, we've seen the trend of quarterbacks getting drafted super, super early. Look at Anthony Richardson, but also look how Anthony Richardson has transitioned to the NFL so far. I'm not saying he's not a talented quarterback. He's seen more time in college. But beside that point, I think either one of them would be good. This is a pretty weak quarterbacks class, for being honest with you, between them. Like them being the top two. I would say out of the two, I'd simply go to Cam Ward, but I really question how much he would fit into the New York scheme, especially because they're dependent on the straight up pocket passer like Danny Dimes. So I'd say maybe Dylan Gabriel will be more of a fit, but I believe Cam Ward is more talented out of the two. But I do think overall that it's time to either move on. It's time to move on from Daniel Jones regardless, unfortunately for them. And, you know, I never thought he was a great NFL quarterback, even when he got drafted, to be honest with you.
And Jason, last but not least, who do you want to see your New York Giants go after?
Well, history tends to repeat itself in the New York Giants. They did this in 2019, where they had a chance to take Dwayne Haskins, and they did not do that. They took Daniel Jones. So my New York Giants, sometimes in the front office, I think they make some calls that are a little disappointing. And I question him a little bit because I would have picked Haskins over Jones, but that's a whole nother story. Cam Ward, I think, would be great as a New York Giant, but again, yes, his game is completely different, and a lot of it depends on, is this coaching staff going to be there next year? So that's going to make a huge difference on who the Giants draft. Is everybody going to be gone? Are they going to clear house? But I would see Gabriel. I think he's the safer pick, and I think he's the pick that front office would take as the face of the Giants. But again, that's another story I can get into at another time. But Giants, I don't know. We seem to make the wrong decisions.
I looked at the free agency class, by the way, for quarterbacks, and there's not a lot. Jameis Winston and Sam Darnold are really the only two that kind of stood out to me.
I mean, Darnold's looked solid. We're starting to see more of the Sam Darnold that we came to know earlier in his career. We're seeing some cracks in that Vikings team that we will touch on later in the show. But on the Panthers side of it, the Panthers have won 2 games in a row for the first time in 2 years. It has been a long time. It's good to see Bryce Young smile and look confident and excited. That's what you want to see out of your potential franchise quarterback. But Chris, I'll throw this one to you first. How much do you think these 2 wins mean for Bryce Young's confidence and his future in Carolina?
A lot. I mean, a lot, because you're looking at that poor kid and he's just broken. I mean, I said that he was just broken. It wasn't his fault. He was broken by the franchise and he was broken by what was put around him. And I'm not going to say that signing Chuba Hubbard is going to go and fix everything instantly, but 2 wins is 2 wins. And it doesn't matter who it's against, because winning the NFL is pretty darn hard. There's no such thing as a free win in the NFL. I think this entire panel can agree on that. Those 2 wins are enormous for his confidence, and I really hope that they can get up to 4, 5, 6 wins and go into next year, maybe go draft a few offensive linemen, get another receiver, and put something around the guy so he can improve and really show the talent that he has. There are plenty of undersized quarterbacks that have been fantastic. Look at Kyler Murray. Look at his performance today. So I think it's enormous overall.
Jason, same question to you.
Look, he looked competent, like an actual quarterback today. He only had 126 yards and a touchdown, so he showed what kind of quarterback he kind of truly is. He's not going to be a bomb it down the field, 400 yards passing. He can get you a little rush if he needs to. He got out of the pocket, got a few scrambles, and got some key first downs. But it looks like if he can kind of manage the game and mitigate the turnovers, if you guys can get a defense behind them, and the Carolina Panthers, if they had a defense, I think this would be a much better team. But if he can kind of control the game and play within what he does and not try to play outside the scope and try to be bigger than what everybody wants him to be, he could be a legitimate quarterback in this league. He's not going to be that 500 yards down the field kind of quarterback. I think that's when he starts making mistakes, is when he wants to be that type of quarterback.
And Shannon, I know you talk about the Panthers all the time, so I try to cut down on the Panthers talk a little bit, because I know it's hard for you and me both. But to end off this game recap, same question to you: how much does this win streak mean for Bryce Young's confidence in his future?
Well, it's definitely a start. Well, let's just go ahead and just say it that Bryce Young has exceeded expectations. Like, this squad has exceeded expectations upon last year with only 2 wins. They've got 3. So they've already exceeded expectations as a squad. And so is Dave Canales as a coach. Now it's the fact of building off of this. Now, do I feel like they're still in tank mode? Yes. Do I still feel like that they're looking for, like, quote unquote, a lottery pick, if you could call it that, in the NFL, since there's no lottery? But you know what I'm saying with the lottery pick. That's the NBA talk right there from my man Jason right there. But with that being said, 11 draft picks sit on your desk for March or April when they have the draft. You might want to make sure that you get what you need out of those 11 picks, because building off the draft is what this squad needs to do. Any squad does that. You can look at the big squads right now. You look at Kansas City. Kansas City, that was 90% draft right there. Everything they've had is 90% draft. It's like maybe 5% free agency. It's 5% free agency and 5% trade deadline is basically what that is. Everything is organic from the draft. And that's the way it should be, because you're building your squads off of the draft, and Carolina's got to do that. So they've got to start with Bryce, and they got to just see how everything goes. I say give them another shot for next year, but the draft is going to be quintessential for the Panthers.
And moving on to our next game, it's Shannon's 49ers. They got CMC back. He wasn't running the ball super great. That's to be expected, but the guy's a weapon in the passing game for sure, and you love to see it.
Yeah, that short passing game definitely helped, because the way that Brock Purdy was moving the pocket, that helped out perfectly. And so when that pocket was moving, he was extending plays. That helped out a lot with the offense, because the running game was slow, but that's to be expected. CMC's not played 6 games. So, of course, you're going to have lag in his game, but yet they do what they do best with them. The scat back approach, the West Coast offense, getting that instilled. Brock Purdy was finding guys like he was Ricky Pearsall was being used in this game here. 3rd and Jawan, you knew Jennings was getting the ball. You knew he was getting it, and then George Kittle coming in clutch. That was big, considering the fact that the special teams was bad today, and there were lags in the defense. They should have lost that game. Tampa Bay had us dead to rights, and they should have done it. But unfortunately, Baker and the offense had some lag, and they gave the ball away. They made some miscues as well, too. It was a super ugly game on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought they were done for when they had Moody up 44 yards to win the game. I was like, it feels like his confidence must have been shot, but I mean, props to him for stepping up when it mattered the absolute most. But, the 49ers, they're getting closer to full strength, minus Ayuk, he's done. But if they can clean up these like small errors now that they're healthier, Jason, how good of a chance do you think they have to win an NFC West that is a pretty close division right now?
They got that puncher's chance. I mean, first of all, Baker Mayfield. I mean, with literally kind of no help, he is an absolute stud. And I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody watched the game. That stiff arm on Bosa, where he kind of literally, Nick Bosa is a monster, and he's literally carrying him 5 yards with a stiff arm and throws the ball down the field and makes a completion. So props, Baker Mayfield. When you lose your 2 stud wide receivers like that, it's hard to bounce back. But the 49ers, they should have controlled this game altogether. I mean, but they seem to be doing a lot of things and making a lot of mistakes. Brock Purdy, hitting some passes and then misses a few passes. It's like the defense stops you, but then they let everybody go by. I mean, so I think with that coaching staff, which again, I think they got one of the best coaching staffs in the National Football League, because again, with all the injuries that they've had on that team, to still be in the mix and relevant and not be down on themselves. Look at how many other teams collapse when you have those kind of injuries. So 49ers have a chance. It's going to be tough because, again, right now, after what the Cardinals did to the Jets, 49ers, you better clean some stuff up, because if you played like you did today and you can't make field goals, you are going to struggle against the Cardinals, because you got to put up some points and you got to stop somebody. And I don't know, they're looking pretty good. So 49ers got a shot. They look good, but they don't look great.
And Chris, same question to you. If the 49ers can clean this up, clean up special teams, get defense consistent, how good of a chance do you think they got to win the NFC West?
It's going to be hard. I mean, while a lot of those teams are not very good record-wise, I do think that they're good talent-wise. There are teams that are coming up in health. A big team that a lot of people are forgetting about are the Rams. I mean, the Rams have a slightly favorable schedule here coming up. They have the Patriots, but after that they have the Eagles, which is going to be a hard one. But the Saints, Bills will be hard, and then the 49ers coming up. So I think that the Rams could kind of come out of the woodworks. San Francisco, a lot of it depends on their health. Obviously, losing Ayuk was really big, but it's good to see George Kittle kind of being involved in the offensive game, especially the pass game, which we've not seen in the past few years. It's seeming he's been more of a blocking role. I think it's all up in the air because Arizona is fantastic. Their offense is electric, and that run game, man, that run game, they've been splitting it with James Conner and Benson and all those guys. I think that's a toss-up. I think that's going to be one of those games that's flexed to Sunday Night Football in the last week of the season that will determine that division and who gets in, because I don't know if they're going to send a wild card. I think a lot of them are going to be really, really clumped up together outside of Seattle. I think Seattle will be at the bottom, but I think those 3 aforementioned teams will be clumped up going into the last 3 weeks of the year, and I think probably only one of them will get in.
It's definitely going to be great to watch. I love the Rams as a sneaky team now that they got the Rams with Kupp and Nakua. It's a tough offense to stop. Kyron Williams has been great too. But moving on, Chris, your Steelers, no one wins ugly like the Pittsburgh Steelers win ugly. It's almost beautiful to watch how they always manage to in the weirdest ways. But Chris, your guy, George Pickens, he's starting to show some flashes of the potential that we thought he could have. Now that they have a good passer like Russell Wilson in at quarterback, do you think this is going to be something that we see from Pickens week in and week out?
Yeah, I mean, 5 receptions, 91 yards, and 1 touchdown. And yeah, the emotional issues are still there. On the interception, instead of going and trying to tackle the corner, he just decides to pick a fight. I mean, yeah, I laughed about it in retrospect because he touched him anyway. But, he's fantastic. I mean, that catch, that first touchdown of the game was amazing. And the thing is you see a lot of receivers when they go up for those kind of catches, they're going to try and propel off of the safety or off of the corner. He just goes up, lets it come to him, and then jumps. It's almost like an outfielder trying to rob a home run. He lets it come to him first. Fantastic catch. And I think even with Fields, he still could have had that capability. I do think that Fields is the quarterback of the future, and I've mentioned that on a few other programs out of pocket in this one as well. But I think now that we have a competent quarterback, that is going to hopefully be the norm with him because he's a fantastic receiver. He had multiple good catches today. He knows how to break coverage, and he knows how to make these fantastic catches without getting PI calls on him. So love seeing George Pickens be who he is. And again, we just need him to not have the emotional issues, but sometimes you got to laugh at it like today.
Mm-hmm. And moving on, Najee Harris, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He struggled this game 21 carries, only 2.5 yards a carry. Shannon, what is going on with Najee Harris, do you think?
I think the shifting of the offense, which quarterback is which, is probably what's been doing it. But the more I look at it, and the more, like when I was watching this game, like, looking at everything, this line is catered to a quarterback that has feet. And so the fact that you've got two quarterbacks that can extend plays, that does help you more in the passing game because, you're moving the defense to one side and then you're moving it to the other side. I think it's a mental thing for Najee. I really think it is because, he's a pro. I mean, he can still play. Najee's still a good running back. I think it's more of a mental block than anything. The offense is still playing consistently. It's not like a blow your doors off offense. It's not like the Lions offense where they're putting up points after points after points and yards all over the place, and they're fast. They're a consistent offense, and that offense is consistently making plays just like they did today. But I think it's more of a mental thing with Najee, I would have to say.
And this will be the last question. It'll be for the whole panel. Jason, you first. Does Mike Tomlin have a good case to win Coach of the Year this season?
He's up there. He's one of those coaches, I think, every season because, again, he wins games. He's really consistent. There's no super highs or super lows with him. He's pretty even keel. I mean, he's kind of keeps his emotions in check. But, yeah, I mean, it's up there. Again, Dan Campbell, to me, I think, has it on lock right now. KC and what they're doing over there, that's another one. But Mike Tomlin, I think, is just a fixture in that organization, and the Steelers do that well. And it's one of those things that, coaches come and go, but for some reason in Pittsburgh, the culture since way back has really developed their coaching and supported them and given them what they need to succeed. And Mike Tomlin does that with whatever he's given. And he takes what he's given and he makes it happen. So is he going to be up there? Yes. I don't know if he'll get it, but kudos to what he's doing because he's got them in first place, ahead of the Ravens and the Bengals. So he's got to be doing something right.
Boom Broadcasting president Michael Davis, he thinks it's Tomlin 100%. Tomlin's got a really good argument. Granted, Dan Campbell has that Lions team playing like the Lions are coming out of the NFC, in my opinion. Unless they get hit with the injury bug, I think it's them clear as day. If you asked me a few weeks ago, I probably would have said Minnesota could have given them a run for their money, but Minnesota's starting to crack a little bit. They struggled against a bad Jacksonville team, but Shannon, do you think Mike Tomlin has a good chance to win Coach of the Year?
I'd love to give it to him, but Dan Campbell has got that. I mean, it's no disrespect to Mike Tomlin because what he's done is very, very miraculous. I don't want to say miraculous because he's done this years and years before with different guys. I'm not going to say miraculous. It's more of the norm when it comes down to Mike Tomlin. He's done this. What's going on in Detroit is never happened in Detroit. Like, not at all. So this is monumental for Detroit. The only way I would say that Dan Campbell doesn't win Coach of the Year is if they just fall off the wagon tonight. That's the only time I don't think that they would do it. But as far as that, he's got it.
Another Dan. Michael thinks Dan Quinn's his runner-up for how he's turned around Washington. That's Coach of the Year is going to be an interesting award to watch out for, see how these teams close out the second half of the season. But to end off our Steelers recap, Chris, you're the resident Steelers fan. You think Tomlin has a good chance? How does he stack up against the Dan Quinns and Dan Campbells?
Fantastic. I mean, I think he's up there. I do agree with the rest of the panel that I don't think he gets it because this is the status quo in Pittsburgh. I mean, we weren't expected to be terrible. Obviously, a lot of people with being us having the number one hardest schedule in the league, which I kind of disagreed with simply because I wasn't that big on Cleveland and Cincinnati going into this year. I do think that he'll be a candidate. He'll be top 3. I do want to mention one that has not been mentioned, and this is only if Arizona manages to win the division, or I'll just say just win the division, is Jonathan Gannon. A lot of people haven't mentioned him before. If Arizona can win that hard division, NFC West, man, I think that he would be in that list too. And it's funny that Michael points out Dan Quinn too, because I mean, what Washington's done this year is fantastic. I mean, I would say that this one and the Kansas City game were the most entertaining of the day. But I'd say Tomlin probably finishes 2 or 3 overall behind either the 2 Dans, aforementioned Dans.
Speaking of that Chiefs game, it is time for a rapid fire segment. I'm going to ask each of my guests one question about a game that we didn't really cover in depth. First up, Jason, the Chiefs squeak by the Broncos, a blocked field goal to save the win for them. They've had a lot of close games this year that shouldn't have been close games. This feels like a Chiefs team that should be weaker than we've seen in other years, but they are still undefeated. It feels miraculous at times. Do you still feel confident enough to pick the Chiefs as the AFC winners and potential Super Bowl winners?
They're undefeated. They're the defending champions. Until somebody beats them otherwise, it's hard to go against them. I screamed out loud. I think my neighbors heard me when I saw that block punt, was watching the red zone, and it was insane. These are those kind of games that prepare you for the playoffs. These gut-wrenching, nervous, how is it going to these are the kind of games that prepare you for the playoffs. And the Chiefs are winning these types of games. So if they're doing this now, what are they going to do in December and January when the nerves are really shot? The Chiefs are like, oh, well, we've already been through this already. We've already blocked field goals. We're not out of anything. So until someone beats them and does otherwise, Chiefs are ridiculous.
Chris, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. The Vikings struggled against one of the worst teams in the league. They only put up 12 points. They almost lost to Mac Jones in 2024, which it would have been really funny if they did. I was rooting for the Jaguars in this one, honestly. How concerned are you about the Vikings offense struggling like they did against a team like Jacksonville?
They have an easy 3 set of games. I mean, and they are not looking fantastic. I mean, they had Jacksonville, then they have Tennessee, and then they have Chicago, and they have very, very winnable games coming up. They got the win. They shouldn't have got the win. I'm concerned for the Vikings. I kind of thought that their, a 5-0 start was not really reflective of their talent. I think their offense should be fantastic, but it's not. With Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold has looked respectable. They should be a lot better than they are. I think that these next 2 games are going to be enormous to prove if they can keep their head above water and get a wild card, because there is no way they're catching up to Detroit regardless.
Shannon, it's been 2 games since the Bears have scored a touchdown. And they gave up 9 sacks this week against the Patriots. Just abysmal offensive line play. Second most sacks allowed in the league this season. Do you think there's any chance that the Bears can overcome a absolutely atrocious offensive line? Because we've seen them look decent past couple weeks look solid, but do you think this offensive line is going to be too much for them to overcome?
I think it is. I mean, Caleb Williams is running for his life. He reminds me of Joe Burrow when Joe was coming up. Joe's still having that problem right now. So I don't think they will, considering the fact that they've got probably the best defensive team in their division, the Green Bay Packers. They have a very good defense. Then they have a good defense with Detroit. Detroit's defense is good. They're not a great defense. Losing Aiden Hutchinson was a big blow to them, but they have a very serviceable defense. And then Minnesota, they have a serviceable defense. It's not a great defense, but considering the fact that you've got all that going on and you lose a game to New England and they really can't stop a tricycle, They're the worst squad in their division right now, and you're having trouble here. I mean, the bad part about it is you had a fellow first round quarterback, and he outplayed you, and his coach called his team soft. So I'm a little worried. I mean, if I was Chicago, I'd be a little worried. You got beat by a soft team, and not beat convincingly. You didn't put up one touchdown over a defense that did not do anything in the past couple weeks. Something's wrong.
Moving on to the preview for primetime, Lions Texans. It could be interesting. Texans are dealing with some injuries on both sides of the ball. Nico Collins is banged up. I'm not sure if he's playing tonight.
He's inactive.
He's inactive. Yeah. Not looking good for Houston, honestly. Defensive side, they're banged up. Their best receiver's not playing. Diggs is gone. They got Tank Dell's a good receiver. Can he carry an offense to a victory over a team as good as Detroit? Absolutely not. But Chris, who do you think's going to win, and how are they going to win this game?
Well, Carrie Underwood's playing right now as we speak on my TV to my right. But Sunday Night Football is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be more competitive than we think. I think both teams are at a similar level, despite the fact that obviously Detroit's offense is much better. I think Detroit is going to win. I think a lot of that's going to be in the passing game. A lot of that's going to be Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta will hopefully finally get involved. That's something Detroit's been lacking in recently with that. But, it's if Houston can win, they're going to need 2 or 3 touchdowns out of Joe Mixon, because that passing game is going to struggle with the severe lack of receivers. Simply, Tank Dell is also beat up. He was questionable going into this game too, but he's playing, so it's going to be hard. I think the 3.5 that we have listed for the line, it's going to be a little bit more than that. I think Detroit will probably win by 7 or 14.
Jason, who do you think's going to win, and how do you think they're going to do it?
Lions 32, Houston 10. I think Houston is not playing very good football. CJ Stroud, definitely in a sophomore slump right now. His success is predicated on the people around him. I do love me some Tank Dell, but really nobody else is involved in that offense right now. Dalton Schultz, etc. I don't know. Houston can't hang with them. I mean, again, Detroit is on a mission. They are steamrolling people. And right now, the only team that can beat the Detroit Lions is the Detroit Lions. So if they make some mistakes, maybe fumble the football, again, they're two-handed monster there, Sonic and Knuckles. Those guys are ridiculous. It is hard to stop the Lions, but I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Houston is definitely regressing right now because CJ needs some help and can't do it by himself.
Yeah, I got to agree with you about the sophomore slump. I hate to see it. I've been a big Stroud guy for a while, and sucks to see him struggling. But Shannon, who you think's going to win? Is it going to be a clean sweep? Everyone thinks Lions are going to win, or do you think Houston's got a little bit of a fight in them? They can pull off an upset.
I believe Houston will be fine in the first half, and then after that, the Lions are just going to finish them off. So they'll make it competitive because they won't completely just get blown out. They won't get destroyed in the first half. They're gonna fight them in the first half, but then Detroit's just gonna be too much, and I think it'll be 34-17 Detroit. I think they'll win by 17.
I hate to jinx it. When everyone picks a team, they usually don't end up winning, but I think Detroit gets it done. That offense is just too good. They got a two-headed monster at running back, Sonic and Knuckles, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, a amazing running back duo. And do I finally admit CJ Stroud isn't Superman? I have done that earlier this year. I picked against the Texans on your show, Michael. So you should have known that already if you would remember. I know you do a lot of content and you're a busy man, but I've said it before on your show. But that'll do it for week 10 of the Gridiron Address. I've been your host, Aaron Schneider. Jason Calenzo, host of 3 from Deep, co-host Sideline Savants with Wayne Thomas. Jason, any last words before we go?
No, man, I appreciate being on. I love hanging out with you guys, man. What an awesome week so far. And we'll see. Hopefully tonight is a good game. So we'll see what happens. And then, you got the Monday Night Football game tomorrow with the Dolphins and the Rams. Can the Rams keep pace in that West? So interesting to see how this week plays out. So, but thank you guys. I appreciate being on with you.
Always glad to have you on. Shannon Smith, Podcast Smitty, host of Quickhits. Go check that out on Boom Broadcasting's YouTube channel. Shannon, any last words before we go?
Nothing much, man. I appreciate you having me on yet again. It's been a minute. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for watching. Keep watching Quick Hits and Bang Bang Niner Game.
And Chris, he's been on 7 times now, I think. Had a solid run there. Host the Dugout Debrief. Go check that out. Thursdays on Boom Broadcasting. Chris, any last words?
Hey, man, we got a season recap coming up this Thursday. We're going to talk about just kind of the crazy stuff that happened this year. This is a crazy year in the MLB. We're going to be covering that. And after that, we're going to start covering teams individually. So keep an eye out for Jason. We were talking about that. The AL East, we did the coin toss this past episode, Dugout Debrief, and the AL East is the first division that will be covered. So the Yankees will be covered here within the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks, something like that. So expect to have Jason on there once I can figure out technical stuff. And thanks for having me on. Here we go, Steelers. We got a lot of season left, but I'm feeling better and better about it.
Alrighty. Always glad to have all y'all on. It's always fun talking football with y'all, but let's head out and hopefully we'll watch a really good Sunday night game.